I was having one night when I loved myself. And you fucked it up.
We can't be happy. We're comics.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Hello and welcome to Deus Ex Comedian. My name is Ryan Bussell. I'll be your host. I am an American living in Sweden since 2006 and a comic since 2011. On this podcast, I'll be talking to comics who have retired, or they're taking a long break, or they simply quit the grind and they're happy to perform just a handful of times per year. So what made them slow down or even stop performing altogether? Is there anything about the grind that they miss? Most importantly, without approval from drunk strangers, how instead do they fill that dark hole inside where a soul should be? Let's find out.
Here we go. Welcome everyone this week to the penultimate episode of season 1. Very exciting. We're doing something tonight that I really tried to avoid doing. I really tried to avoid doing any of these by Zoom, and I really tried avoiding this guy as my next guest, but here he is anyway. Please welcome Henrich Harder.
Thanks.
Nice to see you and your mustache.
Yeah, sure.
How are you feeling?
Well, I've finally got my Ritalin back, so it's pretty good because I got my
Was it stolen?
No, they kind of thought that I was an alcoholic and that I was doing drugs, which I do not condone doing drugs, but it's awesome. No, they fucked up. So I've been unmedicated for a while, but now I'm back on my meds. State-sponsored drugs. Thank you, taxpayers.
Now you're hard.
It's pretty good. Good. How about you?
I'm good. Actually, it's interesting because when I first started this project, I thought about it for a long time, and I was in the longest period of not doing stand-up I'd ever been in the past 10 years. And when I first started, I really didn't know. Like, I knew I wasn't done. I was definitely going to perform again, but I wasn't sure when. I didn't really have any urge to really start doing it. And now in the past few weeks, I've actually performed a bit. I did a gig last night, and I'm going to do another one tomorrow night. And it's been feeling better and better. But the first one back, I did an entirely new set. It had 10 brand new minutes. And I had this idea of how it would go. And I always say, I said in this podcast several times that my main goal with doing stand-up was to I would just predict how the audience would react to my set. And if they reacted that way, I was happy. And so I had this idea of what I was going to do, and I went and performed it. It got 10 minutes. It went well. It went exactly as I hoped it would. And I walked away feeling I got what I expect. I felt like nothing. I felt like no joy, nothing good from it at all. But it's been steadily improving since then. So that's been nice. And you're a bit hard to classify because you've come and gone. We'll get into that, but you've kind of come and gone from the stand-up scene. So you're not an ex-comic by any chance, by any ways. But you haven't really officially taken.
I'm an occasional comic.
Yeah, you haven't you never actually decided. At least as far as I know, you never made a decision now I'm taking a break from stand-up. It was more about opportunity or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. We'll start from the beginning. Now. I don't remember meeting you, and I don't remember exactly when we became friends, but it just sort of kind of happened.
Yeah, I remember the third or fifth time, sixth something. We met and we talked a bit at Big Ben, I think. And I remember using, I thought if I got into stand-up, I'll make new friends, but I haven't. And I was like, fuck, I have to actually text this guy, and that's actually a true story. But I think that it took a while for us to start. I don't know when we started hanging out.
No, I have no clue.
Well, we had our friend trip by the sea with our gin and tonics.
Yes,
by a lake
up in Luleå.
Yeah,
way north. Yeah, that was I remember. But we'd been hanging out quite a bit before then.
Yeah.
Technical problems. And when I first started, I had a girlfriend that I had met online I had no friends, like at all. And I did think that maybe this would be a good way to make friends because I'm a bit socially retarded. And then quickly realized that all comics are socially retarded. So it's very difficult to actually get to know anyone. But unfortunately, you're one of the ones that I got close
But
to.
I think I felt I did have friends because I'm not you. But I think we found each other a bit in the being rookies that nobody wanted to talk to, and a lot of the other rookies were people you didn't want to hang out with, because you were when you started out, you're not accepted into the crowd. Like you have to prove yourself and also kiss ass, and so on. So I think both of us was a bit of a outcasts is a bit harsh, but I think we both felt alone in a way.
Just drawn two lonely souls drawn together.
Yeah.
But you had
Yeah.
already been performing when I started, because I started in March, so 10 years ago. So it would have been, was that March 2011 is when I started. And by that point, you were already around a bit. So when did you first start?
Well, I'm actually gonna look that up. You can edit this. Funny music or something. 09.
Okay, almost 2 years before me.
August, maybe. Yeah, but I didn't perform that much the first year, actually. Yeah, 2009. Because I was in Bungie comedy thing. And yeah, because I've always been the funny guy. And then I thought, well, this can't be that complicated. So I entered the Bungie comedy competition. I wrote some stuff. I was like, this is gonna kill. It was something about Jesus and his disciples. Because I read somewhere that one of them was called Bartholomeus, and I thought that was funny, so I wrote something about that. And then after
already.
the show, pardon?
I'm laughing already.
Yeah, it was something about the original name, but someone came up to me afterwards and like, yeah, there's not a that he's not one of them. So even that I even got that one wrong. But so I performed. I did awful. I wasn't funny at all. Like one of the worst bombings I've ever had. Went home. Wrote some news material. Do you remember my had I stopped doing it? My dad sent me to camp joke.
No.
No. I did that for years. But so I wrote some new stuff. Then Mike Resinen had a club called Ego, I think. So I got a gig there like 3 minutes, and I killed. It was like I was really good that night. So I went back home and like I can do this. You know, it's not that fucking hard. Went up to because you had two you had two tryouts to the Bang Comedy and then one final. Came back, went out cocky as hell. Did my set and bombed, even worse than the time before. And then realized, okay, this isn't that easy at all. And it was the feeling of the suicidal feeling afterwards that apparently made me continue.
Do you remember who won the year you were in?
No. I don't even remember. No, but I know it was some guy that had a joke about a roundabout. I don't know. But I met Jim. He didn't qualify the finals either.
Jim was in the same group.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We were in the same. Because the second time we were in the same group. Then it's because we both lived in Uppsala. So he'd seen me somewhere, and then he actually approached me and he's the most awkward guy I know. So that's weird. But he had a great gig. He did a gig the same time as me on at my Kresenes club. And as you know, Jim has tattoos all over his body. And Mike had told him, like, yeah, you have a lot of tattoos, so you have to, like, you have to mention it. So people stop thinking about it. It was, yeah. And his way of mentioning it was going up saying, "Hi, I'm Jim. I've got a lot of tattoos, and yes, it hurts." Like straight in the mic. People was terrified, and he didn't do that well.
Well, he actually talked about that. I don't know if it sounds like it was the same gig. He talked. It had a very similar experience, right? He didn't do very well at Bungie, but then at a gig, he said it was Mike Resonance Club, and he had actually had a lot of friends that came with him to see him, and he did really well. So then he had a feeling of like, I got this, and then proceeded on the next gig to bomb horribly because he got a bit of a false sense.
Yeah, but he did a lot of gigs at Ego. I think it was there all the time. But he might have, in my version of it, is that he bombed. And I was the shit.
Why didn't
For once, I was better than Jim. And here we are, 12 years later.
And why didn't you perform very much that first year?
I was depressed. I was in the middle of a pretty deep depression. So I couldn't get out of the apartment, and all the usual. So I didn't get out of it for a couple of years, but year after I actually started writing, I noticed that it was really fun writing. And then I started to, because I think one of the things were also I started to hanging out with people, other comics. So I actually had a more, I met people I had fun with. And the first year I had pretty much, a lot of social anxiety and so on. So if I didn't know anyone at the club, I just wanted to get the fuck out of there. But then I think like Adil Faki started to talk to me once, and well, he didn't talk to, he talked at me.
Your being there isn't always very relevant when
words were coming out, and he he seemed to enjoy himself.
Now, one thing I've always asked you is that because like your style, for anyone who doesn't know, you've always been a bit of like a one-liner comic, and you're a bit harsh. One could say. And I always like noticed that I admired it in a way when the audience would just really, it's not the audience didn't think what you were saying was funny. They just really just didn't like what you were saying. Like they were like sometimes visibly upset. And I saw now, I see on you now, I could see how much you were enjoying that. Like I could see how you were really enjoying how uncomfortable the audience was. It just seemed like the quieter the room got, the bigger the smile got in your face.
Yeah.
But that changed almost overnight, though. I just noticed. I actually remember when it happened. It was my first super weekend. I was doing it some Mafia Underbar Bar. I had a Friday, Saturday night, and for whatever reason, I was headlining and DJing, at least in the beginning. And you were on early on, so I had like a front row seat when you were performing, and you didn't do very well as far as like you didn't get a lot of laughs, but you kind of went the way I'm just used to being. It was very confrontational and just harsh. And I could feel it on you when you walked off stage. You were just really unhappy. And I'm just curious, like,
what is unhappy?
but you used to be very happy with getting that reaction. So like, what changed for you?
I don't know. Before I met you, I did stories instead, and I actually went quite good, and people were actually laughing. But then I wanted to do something else, and I found one-liners, and I liked making people uncomfortable with things I actually thought and knew were funny. And because some of those jokes I used to do is really good jokes, but makes people very uncomfortable. And sometimes people laugh and have a great time. Sometimes they just want to go someplace else.
And hide.
And I like that. I thought my comedy was smarter than them, or bigger in a sense. So my ego was really big. But I think because I didn't write anything for a long time, so I did the same shit over and over. So I think the creative part of stand-up, I lost that because I was just standing there repeating the same things. And then I also realized that I'm not the genius I thought I was. And that sometimes I had this illusion of, even if people were hating me, someone in the audience will think it's funny, but they might not, want to laugh or have the guts to laugh. But then I realized that sometimes I'm just not funny at all. I'm just being an asshole standing there thinking he's better than everyone. I think those thoughts started to come into my head, but I think mostly I was sick of my own jokes, because now I actually know. When you do a lot of stand-up, you have this like the comic brain that you used, things comes to you, like, oh, that would be a fun thing to write something about, and that would be, jokes just popping up. I lost that, so I think the creative part was a big thing. I just thought I was standing there saying the same crap over and over, and then I continued doing that for years, same jokes.
Oh, you can. I think you obviously you can do that. And I've always been so fascinated by comedy. There's comics I saw for the first time 10 years ago, and I see them on a semi-regular basis. And even today, they have nothing I haven't heard before.
No,
and they're just happy to keep performing it. And then, like, for me, I can't understand that at all. Yeah, but God bless them if they're happy doing it.
Yeah, but for a couple of years, I wrote a lot, and I think that's the process of stand-up that I like the most. And then I like, performing and boosting my own ego, but I like how jokes change when you do them on stage. You find these little small things that if you translate something, you pause there, you perfect them by doing them. I think I've always liked that process more than maybe doing stand-up, in a way. So when I lost that part, it wasn't fun to do stand-up anymore.
Yeah, I can get that.
You sound, I sound so artsy and like a fucking asshole. I'm so pretentious.
No, it's okay.
The process that makes me an artist.
It's fine. That's just how it comes across. I always love talking serious about comedy. We're talking seriously about something that's not serious at all. I was on a podcast a few months ago. It was me, David Weaver, and Catherine Monroe.
Yeah.
This is like during the pandemic when nothing was open. There's no place to perform, and Catherine was going on and on about how we're artists, so we need places to express our art and blah blah. And I just jumped in and say I agree. It is art. It absolutely is art. But I'm also talking about my dick. I mean, it's really hard to talk. It's like, I need a venue. I mean, my dick is not going to talk about itself because I'm an artist. I have things to express about my penis. Of course, when you talk seriously about it, it's just sound pretentious. That's just the price of admission. That's just how it goes. So it's okay. Now you took. No, go ahead.
That's the thing about comedy, that you can actually, because I was pretty invested in the pro-democracy movement in Burma for a while before I lost hope.
Got older.
Pardon?
You got older.
Yeah, I got older. But it was I think it was three guys that did committed a lot of stand-up things in Rangoon, and a lot of Westerners came there to see them, and they actually did a lot of things that was anti the government, anti the military junta, and they were protected because there was a lot of Westerners that came there, and also protected because they weren't straight out saying something against junta, but they did humor that people could understand was this. So we had that. It's like the ones fighting oppression, fighting for democracy with humor, and then you have your dick. We have the whole array, and we like to think we are a part of it all.
That's always the idea of it being in the afterlife and walking up to Beethoven and saying, "Oh yeah, oh yes, I was also an artist."
Yeah, I can play with my penis.
Yes. But even not even just like being an artist, but being a comic, it took me, because I fell in love with comedy when I was 11 years old. That's when I really started getting into stand up, and all my heroes have been comics. So even after I started performing myself, it took me a long time before I would actually say I'm a comic.
Yeah.
Just because it's the same word you use, like George Carlin was a comic, Bill Hicks was a comic. For me to say I'm a comic, like I've heard people say that you're a comic the first time you're on stage, and I don't agree with I don't agree with that. But
I still don't like calling myself a comic, even when I did a lot of stand up, because I do stand up, but I'm not a genius enough to be a comic.
I don't think it would be a genius enough. I think for me it was more like it's less right now. It might change in the near future. Maybe we'll see. But I mean, for years, my whole life revolved around comedy. I was like doing. I had the clubs. That was my main life, and then my job when I had one was on the side, or my family life was like on the side. But I was arranging everything around comedy, and I was constantly thinking about comedy. And that's why I felt comfortable to call myself a comic. I mean, everyone has different rules. I've heard people say, you can just post that on Facebook amongst comics and say, when can you call yourself a comic? And you'll get a million answers. Like I've seen this conversation before, and it's like, the first time you get a standing ovation, or only if that's your primary source of income, or blah blah, this or that. But for me, it's a little simpler than that.
I've never understood how, like the stand-up forum, that you actually can have a serious conversation without someone mentioning their dicks. They're not comics if they can have this serious conversation without talking about genitals. But I did call myself a comic a lot when I was on Tinder. Damn,
Right.
that's yeah.
Let that work?
Yeah, I'm a comic. Oh fuck yeah. They were not allowed to see me perform.
The smarts.
Yeah.
I've seen many people take first dates, like many comics take first dates, or like very early on, looking to see them perform, and can't see why it's a good idea. I guess in a way it could be a good idea. It could really show them who you are, but I think most comics probably want to hide who they are, so it's not a good idea.
Yeah, I never want people to come that I know to come to my gigs, because like I was playing a lot of innebandy, floorball, when I was younger, and actually did quite well. I never wanted people to come and watch the games that I knew, because it was like another part of my life. It was my part of life in a way. And also I sucked when I knew people there were watching. Gets into your head. But it's the same thing with stand-up. There's a few of my friends that ever seen me perform, because it feels like it's another world that is mine in a way. So I don't want them to enter that world in a way. And also I hate that you if they see you one time and you bomb, that's who you are as a comic. And since I bombed 95% of the time, they can't see the brilliant me.
Yeah, they're not lucky enough.
No.
I started a new job a few months ago, and I mean, everyone. It's a small office. It's like maybe 30 people in the company, maybe, and everyone's been working from home. So I've only met a few of them, but tomorrow we're actually going to meet. Many of us are going to meet at the office and have like a summer after work kickoff kind of hang, and then there's a big group chat on Slack that we use to communicate. So earlier I had the bright idea to say to everyone, hey, if you're interested in an after work, I'm actually going to be performing at a club at 8 o'clock, and you're welcome to come. And the second I hit send, I immediately regret it because now I know there are a few people now apparently who are interested in going. So people who like never met me, actually met me in person, are now going to see me do stand up
about your penis.
About my penis, yes. But it's kind of cool though too, because I mean, I'm working for an IT company, and so far everyone that I've met seems a little Aspergery. And I'm not like, again,
no.
And again, I'm not like uber social or anything, but I feel like I could be the king of that office.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm a bit messed up since I worked in Stockholm with IT, because all of them had Asperger's, and I love working with people that have Asperger's, because you can actually tell them, I think this thing you did sucked, and they were like, okay, be more precise. It's like this and this. All right. And I noticed that all the other places you work, you can't just say, I think you're an idiot because of this and this and this. Do you want to go and have a beer afterwards? It's not, people take things personally.
Yeah.
It sucks.
They see nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so actually, I just mentioned now, so we met in Stockholm, of course. Right now you're in Gothenburg, but you've moved around a bit, and usually for the same reason. But some years ago, you moved down south. So you moved down south for love, and you moved to a place where there really weren't a lot of opportunities to perform. Did you perform at all when you first moved down there?
In Gothenburg?
Yeah, no, not to Gothenburg. No, to we moved down to Lund.
Oh, yeah, I did. I did mostly in Malmö. I did one gig at what's that hotel called that had a comedy club? Mac? No, Mac wasn't in London.
Mac was in Lund.
Then it was Mac. Okay. I did one gig, and then I did, because then it was a lot of free open mic clubs in Malmö, but people didn't know how to run them, so they sucked. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I did a lot of gigs in Malmö, but never anything big at all. Mostly for like 3 people, and but that taught me a lot actually, because it's like Copperfields, the old Copperfields.
Club has come up quite a bit in this podcast. Yeah.
Yep, because it's legendary. But Copperfields and Malmö taught me that you can actually have fun in a room that's only 2 people. That is actually not the size of the crowd that matters. It's how you use your penis. No, just because it was this like 4-6 people in the audience every time, but I did have a lot of fun. But that was when I started to, just crowd talking and freestyle a bit more. Never done before.
Okay.
So I think that's where I started with that thing. So it was a lot of fun. And none of the clubs lasted more than a year.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what's even open down there, or was it open before the pandemic? I'm not really sure what's going on down there. There's not a whole lot. No. But when your relationship came to a spectacular end, you went into exile.
Rest and burn. Yes.
Exile into Gotland. How long were you there for? Quite a while.
I think it was 7 or 8 months.
Only?
Maybe. No, 10 months must have been.
I imagine you had other things to think about, but were you thinking at all about comedy then? Like, did you miss it then? No.
No, I was back in depression. I was living on my mom and dad's pull-out couch, unemployed, my heart broken. Did not think a lot about comedy, no, at all. I didn't miss it at all because I was in a weird bubble then.
Makes sense. But you finally came out of it. And
Yes.
you made it back to Stockholm.
Yes.
But you never really got back into, like, you performed here and there, but you never really got back into like the volume of gigs I'd seen you do before.
No.
What was the reason? Was any reason for that?
I think it was a bummer that since I'd been away from Stockholm for like 2 years, it was a lot of new people and new people that were the shit and that you had to get to know to get, you know, gigs or be one of the gang, you know. So I think I was a bit put off by having to start over in a sense. But now a lot of people, I knew a lot of people that had clubs and so on. But it was, I think it felt like I had started all over again. And I still hung out at clubs, but didn't perform that much.
Yeah.
I could be more selective when I was just drinking beer. So I think that's the reason.
You actually inspired a question I think I've asked every single person on this series so far.
How many testicles do you have?
Oh, that one. They have to pass the test before they even get on the podcast. So
I only have one.
We have a fake one though, so that's the important thing is that it looks normal.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I have a story about
Okay.
because my other testicle is a stråfisk. Don't know. So it's
No.
underdeveloped. So it's apparently the difference in size. His doctor was like, "No, it's gonna look awful." Do it anyway. It looks awful.
Do they just give you a ping pong ball?
No, it's like a rubber thing. It actually feels quite testically.
That's good. Only your doctor knows for sure. No, the question you inspired was I think I've asked everyone on this who had been taking a long break and had been away from the scene for a long time, how would they feel if they walked into a club like Big Ben and saw this like sea of new faces and so the comedy didn't recognize them, but more importantly, they weren't recognized by these new faces either, and so all those new people, you know, they don't give it a time, they don't pay attention to you because you're brand new.
Yeah.
How would that feel? I got inspired because I remember not that long ago you told that story and you were a bit ego bruised because you were like, "What the hell? Like, don't they know who I am?" It's like, no, of course they don't know who you are.
Yeah, I think I was talking about all the because I went to, I think it was Big Ben or something like that, and I was, you know, nobody was talking to me because I was the new guy, and then I went up on stage and did quite well. It wasn't a killer gig, but you know, it was all right. And like most of the people there had quite a few gigs under the belt, didn't know how to be on a stage. So I think I looked natural up there, according to someone. So it was like I got pissed because that was all ego. But it's like, yeah, that joke. If you said it like this, like, yeah, it took me years to get it exactly like that. If you said this instead, it was like, no, I've worked on this. No, but the feeling, it depends. If you get into a new, because I did that here in Gothenburg as well. So I did 2 gigs before the pandemic hit. I did the gig where nobody talked to me, except the drunk Finnish guy. He was weird. Anyway, so I did the first gig. Nobody talked to me. I went up. Went really, really well. So afterwards, then I was like, I could have a beer with everyone. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna fit right in. And then next gig, I kind of bombed, not totally bombed, but didn't go quite that well. And then I really got this from, it wasn't the same people, but the cool people was like, yeah, thanks for coming. And I was used, okay, I can go home, because now it feels like I'm searching for your appreciation, and I don't need it. Ego.
Yeah.
Again.
I think a lot about
that.
No, go ahead.
No, sum up. It depends on whether it goes well or not on stage. Kind of.
I was gonna say I compare stand up to Band of Brothers quite a bit.
The replacement.
Exactly, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening who doesn't know what that is, so after the first wave of the first series of battles, then all the people who had started on the front, they were now veterans, and then in came the replacements, like the fresh troops from the U.S. right out of basic training, sent right to the line, and all of the now veterans didn't want to spend any time talking to them, because why bother? They were like very likely to die. So
Yeah.
I think
it's exactly.
I think it's very similar, and I've discussed that before. I really try to not do this, even though I know it's very common, and I don't succeed very often to not do this. But if I see someone new at the club, I don't talk to them. But if they go on stage and they do really well, then I'll want to talk to them. And if they don't do well, then I don't want to talk to them. I'm trying to work on that.
You won't.
I did.
You like being the one that you've been on the other side. Now you're on this side.
I know, but now I think if I come out the other side of the bell curve, though, because I was away. It was January of last year that I decided to like kind of take a step back and just take a step back, not perform. And it was months before I went back to other clubs again, and even then it was just here and there. But I went to Big Ben, I think it was maybe last October or so. And before the show, this guy came in, and I don't remember people's faces or anything. I had no idea. I could have met this guy 10 times before and didn't know it. But it turned out I hadn't met him before, because he had just started. It was like that night. We started talking before the show, and I think it was like going to be his third gig ever. And then he just asked me like, oh, how long have you been performing? And I was almost embarrassed to admit that it's been 10 years, because I really felt like it was like, it's like I'm telling this guy, like, it's really hard in the beginning. You've really got to push, you got to grind. But if you work really hard, 10 years from now, you can still be here, going up first with 5 minutes. Let's keep living that dream.
I do the same. It's like, how long have you been doing this? Well, maybe 11 years or something. But I had a long pause, and I used to do it occasionally. So it sounds better than I tried and failed, and I'm still here.
There's a few years. But then, how do you? Anyway, I've asked people that question of like, how would you feel getting that reaction at the clubs? I think all but one actually loved the idea. They actually thought, I mean, who knows how they would actually feel in reality. Idiot? Sorry?
Who's that idiot?
Who's that idiot? All of them. All but one.
That idiot. That's wanted to do it.
Gotcha. Well, the one person who like kind of like rolled his eyes at the thought was just the idea of like oh my god, I have to start all over again. And like just the idea of having to do that again was rough. But eventually, like even he said what everyone else said, which was, it's kind of nice, the idea of starting over again, like to have like a skill set when no one expects anything from you, and there's no expectations, and you can really kind of set yourself up new.
But it feels like I only got up to second layer. It's like first layer, rookies, nobody talks to them. Second layer, people know who you are and talk to you, but you're not invited to the birthday party.
Hang on, are there more layers? Because that's wrong.
Apparently, you went from bottom to first immediately. You're always invited.
No, I'm not invited to shit. No, I take it back. I have been invited to one. But I guess that's level 3.
Yeah, I was invited to the stand-up thing, Christmas party.
Yeah.
Me and 400 people. Like,
Yeah, there are a few of
two
those. They're
guys
fun.
knew my name.
But now you're living in Gothenburg.
Yep.
So long story short, you came back to Stockholm for a while. Now you moved to Gothenburg, and now that you're in Gothenburg, you could.
Uppsala, got dumped. Stockholm, fell in love. Malmö, got dumped. Gotland, Stockholm, got dumped. I fell in love again, so now I'm here.
It's a really good plan. A plan to follow. Good career path.
There's a lot of people out there that needs, some alone time and figure out who they are, and then about a year later they're pregnant with their ex-boyfriend. There's apparently more than one. Weird.
Good times.
Yeah. But
now that you're in Gothenburg.
Yep.
So what stops you from kind of grinding there? Because there are, pre-pandemic and now seems like we're climbing out of it. Clubs are starting to open again. Do you have like any drive to like grind again, like to start asking for spots?
Yeah, actually, I do, because I met 2 comics here that I really like. The first, I only did 2 or 3 gigs maybe before Corona hit, but I've actually met people here in other circumstances that are quite friendly and nice people. So it feels a bit like there's its crowd in here in Gothenburg as well, but I think it's much smaller in a sense. So it's not as tight and hard to get into. And also I've been writing stuff that are not one-liners and that are so I want to try that out, because it's a new way for me to write. It's usually been one-liners, and I love writing one-liners because it's beautiful. So I just want to try writing this kind of stuff as well. Just try it out, see what happens. Actually, I have a gig tomorrow.
Oh, really?
That is, my first post-Corona gig. But then I have none planned.
Where are you performing?
Vasa, Arja Igelkotten. I think it's something hedgehog. Reminds me of Jim.
Jim, yes.
It's called Halta Kotten. Gustav Vasa, Gothenburg. Great club.
Very cool. Break a leg. How's it feel? The thought.
I have now it feels like, that's gonna be fun. But I realized, because when you started out doing comedy, I was like, you had a gig planned 3 weeks ahead. You felt like shit for 2 weeks, and you were nervous, and everything was awful. You did the gig, and then same procedure all over. Then I feel sick to my stomach period decreased. So like when I did stand up a lot, it was the 2 or 3 minutes before I went up that I, the whole, why the fuck am I doing this?
Yeah.
I'm stupid. I will go up, I will say hello, and I will get off, because this is just, I'm an idiot. I'm starting to have that feeling today, actually. So maybe I have to go through this. But it feels good, because I've actually written new things, and I was there a couple of weeks ago, and they were all the people there, the comics were really nice, and so hopefully it will go well. Otherwise, I just have a beer with some fun people. Cool. Hopefully. So it feels good.
Oh, break a leg. Look forward to hearing how it went.
Yeah, but it's I think that's also one of the reasons I've done comedy to a lesser extent, because before you in Stockholm you had you could always have a couple of months before you actually got booked, and when they started to know who you are, you could actually just email someone that ran a club and get a spot in 3 months, but you had it booked. So now it's like, yeah, one gig and then I don't have anything, and I have to have some kind of, I have to be driven to to perform, because when you perform a lot, it was given to you at the free open mics because people knew who you were. So now I have to make an impression so people will actually book me.
As many too. I commented on that before. Just that I noticed that changed a few years ago. In the beginning, not getting anything booked at all, and then suddenly having gigs booked, and just that thought of like, holy shit, in 2 weeks I'm gonna be at Big Ben, like I'm booked.
Yeah.
And then it gradually changes to like, like I've got Big Ben tonight.
Yeah. But I have to, because I did a lot of my first 2 or 3 years, it was Mafia, the place where you performed. And Laszlo, he's always been upfront, but he hates my comedy because he hates one-liners.
He hates
not
one-liners.
stand-up. Yeah, and he hates my kind of comedy. But I got spots. He's always been good at like bringing people together in a way. During Mafia, the old-fashioned, then you were close up in fucking cellar and you had to talk to people. So even though I wasn't in the click, you got booked. Now it's harder nowadays. You actually have to perform. I think that's my problem. I have to start performing.
We have to start performing,
like actually having good gigs.
Yeah, it's tough with Mafia too. Because before, there was a point that it was literally 7 nights a week with free entry, and at that point, now I was living there. Now it's just 2 nights a week, and it's a pay to get in, and it's not cheap.
No.
So he's a lot more selective about who he puts on these days.
Yeah, well, he actually made a career out of it.
He built a hell of a brand.
Yeah, he deserves it. Someone else maybe have to take the torch and make another Mafia, maybe.
Yeah, more clubs for the people, more clubs for the comics.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of room to grow too. There's essentially 3 big clubs in the entire country. They're all in Stockholm.
Yeah,
it's not easy to get the spots there.
No, but another thing that I think made it hard for me to get gigs is if I do a good gig, usually it's a really good gig, but if people get the one-liner, the dark things, it goes very well. But when I bomb hard and often. When it's people want to leave because it's uncomfortable. So if you do a really good gig and someone, come to my club, and I used to make people want to throw up. Nobody would book me because it's like, yeah, he had one gig that was really good, but it's not gonna work out. It's you, not me.
Well, I hate to bring up your failures, and that wasn't the point of this pod, but I do remember.
Oh, please do.
I do remember the last time we were at the London Comedy Festival, and it didn't go quite as well for you as you. It wasn't the bombing. I'll point that out. You didn't bomb. I've seen you do.
It was uncomfortable.
And of course, your girlfriend was there to see you then. So my question is, has she seen you do well?
She only seen 2 gigs, London, and one here in Gothenburg that didn't go that well. It wasn't total bombing. It was kind of good, but not what I wanted.
So do you feel
And also,
if
I
you're gonna
had
see it tomorrow, do you feel pressure to excel?
Oh no, she's not coming tomorrow.
Okay. More choice. Might
But
want
I
to
think
put some more
that
under your
was.
belt.
Oh yeah, I wanna. But that's also the exam. It's my thing. I want to do it by myself. But still, I want her to see me perform. But I want her to see me do a gig that I know will be awesome, and that's impossible in stand-up.
That's why one of the billion reasons I love stand-up is that, I mean, everyone, including myself in the beginning, I mean, everyone is so terrified of bombing, and it's just you can't avoid it. It's going to happen. Like you could be at your absolute best and doing material that has worked a million times before and still bomb. It's a lot of times it's totally out of control. It's just going to happen, and it's okay.
And I love that, you're at a club, it's a great night, everybody's doing really well, you know that you don't suck, the audience is on fire, you go up and you totally bomb with material worked and are good. You shouldn't have bombed. This is really interesting because you can't pinpoint what went wrong either. Often you can, but sometimes, like, I did exactly what I did last night and I totally ripped the place apart, and now people are shouting "get off."
I love, for me, when those times it goes the other way around, when it's like I see comics come off stage and they look at me and they say, "Oh, like, oh, tough crowd tonight, tough crowd," and then I go on and actually goes well. That's a great feeling. It's the polar opposite of what you just described. Yeah, and it goes well for everyone else but you. Yeah,
that's usually me. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I definitely have that also.
Yeah, who was it that said if you haven't done a gig and went home and wanted to kill yourself, you haven't done stand-up? Who was that?
I think it was like
Kodjokalor or someone that said it. Or sounds like an Adil thing.
It's hard now. Adil has said so much. It's one thing he said.
Things. Yeah. I also remember I did a gig with Aron Flam. That was weird. No, he wasn't weird. It was a gig at Handelshögskolan. And he did a set that was about that, because his dad is like a professor in economics and something, and Aron, I don't know, knows about he's Jewish. He knows about money. And he did his set was that it was built around the supply and demand, and that the price for pussy was higher than the price for dicks, but according to supply and demand, it shouldn't be that way, and we are overpricing vagina, and it's that therefore it's like a vagina bubble that's going to burst. And it was really good because it was in economical terms, and with their theories and so on, and nobody laughed. He bombed so hard, and I was like, this is he made this for you. But I remember after that gig, because I can't remember how I performed, but after, and he was like, yeah, you're good, but you will never make it in stand-up. And it was so honest. Yeah, but it was like, I think that's the only time he ever spoke to me. He doesn't know who I am, but it was appreciation for my style, my one-liner writing, but it was just totally honest as well. It was like, yeah, you can just quit because you won't. You're not brilliant enough. But I had fun.
That's the important thing. I think that's the thing with comedy also. It's one thing if you expect like a career, like you're gonna get cast as like the wacky neighbor and then be doing movies sometime, but you can perform forever just at open mic clubs and things. That's also okay. It's you don't have to have an end goal.
No. And I think I've felt comfortable with doing occasional stand-up, because I do love being on stage. I do love a good night. I love the people at the clubs, and also performing is awesome. But I do it for my own sake. But I don't know if it's just because because I don't have the urge for making a career, or if I just know that I won't be able to make a career. But I feel it's a great choice to just do it when I feel like it.
It's one thing I've realized about this while I've been doing this pod, because the whole thing came out of me thinking about all of the like really good comics that I used to see on a regular basis, and then one day I just didn't see him at all anymore. But where I'd see him like a couple times a year, when he used to be, when he used to be several times a week, and that's what got me thinking about this pod, and got me thinking about like all of those people. It's a long list of people that are like that. But I started thinking recently about the fact that I don't know a lot of like terrible comics that stopped.
No.
I mean, like on the one hand, because I mean, of course, I mean, I'm sure there are a million people that I have seen before that I don't see ever anymore, and I just never got close to them for obvious reasons. But I mean, there are a lot of like just people just were never very good, and they're never going to be very good, but they're still performing. They're still out there.
Yeah,
and the snob part of me wants to tell them like, just like, why are you doing this? But they enjoy doing it, so it's okay.
Yeah, and still, I admire those people. You know, if they put their that kind of like the energy and stubbornness into something else, they would probably be the best at it. But just grinding for year after year, but those are also the people that go off stage and like, yeah, it's a really good gig. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's the rough part. That's the rough one. When like, yeah, nailed it. It's like,
yeah, but still, they love stand up as much as we do. So
yeah, and that's why it's okay.
Yeah, I think they thank you for your blessing.
Yes, I'm sure they do.
Our Lord and Savior.
Well, I like to wrap up each pod with an exchange of war stories, because it is the one thing I miss. I don't really miss hanging out in clubs very much, but I do miss just talking to their comics and just like talking about the horrible corporate gigs or first bombing or whatever. So I asked everyone to prepare something. So I have a story for you. Hopefully you have a story for me. I don't know if you want to go first or I can. It's up to you.
No, you just have to comment on the war stories you said in clubs and talk about war stories. Those are also the only times you tell those stories that you know that the people around the table laugh at you, not with you. And it just feels awesome.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm actually going to tell an offstage story this time, because I've unfortunately accumulated my share of beefs within stand-up over the years. Not that I like go looking for it, just sort of happens. I am not a great person, so I definitely brought a lot of things on myself. But in this case, I'm going to defend myself and say, in this case, it was not my fault at all. So to go back a few years, so it was the Lund Comedy Festival. So it's down south. It's like a 6-hour drive from Stockholm, and I love comedy road trips. So the Lund Comedy Festival it kicks off on a Wednesday, and then it runs until Sunday. And I got a bunch of comics together. We're all going to go down to the festival. We went down on Thursday. We left from Stockholm in a big van that I rented, and we left Stockholm around 3:30 in the afternoon. And of course, when you leave Stockholm at 3:30 in the afternoon, you're going to run into rush hour traffic. So I expected that was fine. But then we ran into another traffic jam. Like we hadn't made it halfway there, and we got stuck in this like bumper to bumper traffic to add like another hour to a very long trip. Our goal was to get every night at the festival. They have like a mingle. Like everyone that's involved in the festival gets to have like drinks and food and stuff. And so our goal was we're gonna get down to the festival in time for the mingle. Well, now with the extra travel time, I was getting really stressed. And when we finally cleared that, I just like put the pedal to the floor and just drove like a shot, like as fast as I could to get down there. Didn't stop or did anything. So finally made to Lund. We were very, very late. My wife Eva was with me, and I dropped everyone off we were all staying at the same hotel. So I dropped everyone but Ava off at the hotel. She stayed with me. I found a parking space for the van, which is not easy in Lund to find a parking space for a van. That's like an adventure in itself, but I found spots, rushed into the hotel to check in, went to our room. And of course, I hadn't taken a leak in hours because I was just in stress mode. So I hadn't peed at all. But now heading to and I had to go. Now that I knew we were about to go to the room, then of course my feeling of having to piss just like jacked up by 1,000%. And now I really had to go. Now I was carrying the bags. Ava had the key for the room. Ava, it was like an electronic lock. So we got to the door. Ava tried to open the door and it didn't work. There was like something wrong with she couldn't quite fumble with the lock. And by this point now I'm like dancing because I really, really had to go. So while she's trying to figure out the door, I noticed down the end of the hallway, a door opens and someone comes out and starts walking down the hallway towards us. And it's like a really dark hallway in the hotel. So like I couldn't really see who it was. And I was a little distracted also. And just as Ava got the door open, I recognized who that person was because it was all comics staying at this hotel. So I see who it is and we'll call this person Bob. I see that it's Bob. The second I can get in, and I just run through the door, run to the bathroom and evacuate myself. It felt much better. Now, Bob is someone that I've known since they started doing stand-up. And we like talked a little bit, but not usually much more than hello. It just, I don't have anything against the person. It's just someone I just never really talked to, just wasn't never really in my circle or whatever, just like didn't really hang with. But I always say hello. And I saw Bob later on that night and waved hello. And that was it. So it was like 3 weeks later, this person had contacted another club, but I'm not mentioning names here, had contacted the club asking for a spot. And the club owner said, no, I'm sorry, the schedule is full. Whereupon Bob replied very sarcastically, like, oh, that's fine. I mean, you have Ryan and Ava. And the club owner told me this because he thought it was very funny.
Yes.
And I didn't think, and normally I wouldn't care about it. It just so happened though that like a few days later, I was supposed to drive Bob and Ava 4 hours south for a road gig. So I had to be sure, like, what is Bob's problem? So I contacted Bob. The club owner was not happy that I did this, but I was like, I have to ask. Yeah. So I contacted Bob and just said, hey, I heard you made this comment and I'm just curious what's up. And my guess was like, so this club, I'm there all the time. So my feeling was that Bob was like making a crack about like, oh, well, like Ryan gets to be there all the time and you can't give me a spot. But I mean, Ava performs there like once a year, maybe.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite understand why Bob was including Ava in this. That was my guess. And I was not prepared for the actual response. The actual response was, I feel that since the ticket prices are so high, it's unfair for the crowd if the comics that are performing are not up to the level of paying for a show of that price. But I'm sorry that it's funnier in Swedish. Bob said, "Jag råkade nämna." It's like Bob said, that I'm sorry that I managed to mention you and Ava as examples. And then my jaw hit the floor and I saw a response. And I just like wrote back to Bob and said, like,
honest Bob.
I wrote back to Bob and said, like, listen, like, you know, I'm there because I worked for that club for years. That's why I'm there so often. And I deliver. And I said, you don't have to like me. That's fine. But I deserve some respect. To which Bob replied, Bob said, well, I'm going to reply to this and then I'm done with this conversation. You have no right to talk to me about respect the way you just ignored me in Lund.
Ooh.
So like, Bob, if you're listening, I was not ignoring you. I just had to pee. That's all it was. So this is a beef, but to Bob's credit, actually, I actually have seen Bob since then a few times and went out of my way. He's like, hello. And Bob said like, hello back. And there's not been a problem. So I don't really know where I stand with Bob these days, but that was not my fault. I just had to pee. That's all it was. The comics were very special people. I just love. Can you imagine the size of the balls you have to have to tell a club owner, if you don't have someone like me, you are literally robbing your audience.
I think I would never say that, but I've thought it so many times. So I love myself.
So that's my war
But
story.
I feel like when the whole hi Bob, hi Ryan, you go out of your way. I think it must feel like when I went to a bachelor party and my ex-girlfriend was there as well, and that was one of them that needed some space and time to figure herself out, and was pregnant
Was
within a year.
was she in the cake?
In the what?
Was she in the cake?
No, she was not in the cake.
Okay.
She was there because it was 2019 and we 2017, and gender equality and all that. We evolved, but it feels like the same. Oh hi, as we did for 6 hours. Like, so how have you been? Oh, you're pregnant. Oh, do you know the gender yet? And then I went home and wanted to kill myself. Oh yeah, my
your story. Yes, your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, beat that.
Ooh, it's a battle. No, but I think I was performing at Mafia. I was fairly new. We knew each other back then, but I haven't been doing stand-up for that long. I did a gig that I thought was okay, but I wasn't really pleased with it. And then the comics used to sit in their own space, and constantly being told to shut the fuck up because the audience could hear us. But after the whole thing was over, most of the comics stayed and drank beer because we're alcoholics. And this girl came up to me and was like, "Oh, I saw your gig," and I was like, "Oh, fuck, I must have been pretty good." And she more or less threw herself at me, and I was like, "Damn, I really, I'm awesome." And went back to her place, and the whole apartment was filled with like aim for the stars, because if you miss, you I don't know, end up in the skies, whatever, and carpe diem on like 3 different plaques everywhere. And I hate this. It makes me vomit. But we still had coitus. And I went home and it was like, okay, it wasn't the best thing I've done in my life, but I felt like, oh shit, I did so well last night that I actually got laid. And then I met you, and you told me that she had been hitting on every comic I've been performing that night.
I do remember
and
that.
I was the last one. I was at the bottom of her list. She went to sleep with a comic. So a whole the self-esteem that I got from that night was just blown away. And then 2 weeks later, I think, she called me and said, "Yeah, hi, I have an STD, so you have to get yourself checked." I was like, okay, I did. Test came back negative, so I texted her and like, okay, so I'm clean. I got like the longest text in all caps. Like, how the fuck can you be clean? I think it was chlamydia. She had a chlamydia. Is it's so easy to transmit. It must be you. You have to do another test. She just freaked out. I didn't respond to that one. A year later, she called me like, "Yeah, hi. So I'm thinking about doing a show. And do you want to do stand up?" I'm like, "No, not at all." How's the STD coming?
The show is my bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah, she was weird, but I just remember the moment you told me, and the grin on your face when I was like, "Yeah, I got ladybug."
Even now when you start
started
telling
with Ben.
that's exactly as soon when you started telling the story and I realized where it was going, I was like, yeah, because I can actually see right now at the bar her going after Ben, and Ben just like being like to worm his way like away from her. But not you.
Not me. No. I was having one night when I loved myself. And you fucked it up.
We can't be happy. We're comics.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Oh yeah, Eric talks about that he doesn't do stand up because he's happy.
Yeah,
I love that.
Pontus said pretty much the same thing. Pontus Strobeck.
Oh, okay.
More the same thing. I was like I just asked him like where'd your drive go to perform? He said, oh, I got happy. So you just realize there's more to life. So
that's why you have to have chronic depression. You just have to be there forever. But that's also it's hard to I don't know if it's just comics, but I noticed that a lot of comics do this, that when you start to be happy you fuck it up hard so you can still be unhappy. So it always amazes me when comics suddenly are happy, but it's like, and you didn't want to fuck it up. What?
I think though too, like I mentioned this before in the pod, that like when I first started, if anyone laughed at any point that I was on stage, I mean afterward I'd be like, killed.
Yeah.
They laughed at one joke out of 10, killed. And then I would see comics who had far more experience than I did. I mean, and like 9 jokes out of 10, people were just pissing themselves laughing. Yeah. And then one joke got like a and they can't go off the stage just like, yeah, that one joke, just miserable. It's like you just had a set that I would kill for, and you're only thinking about that one joke that was like kind of funny. But I can definitely relate now. I mean, there's definitely been gigs I walked off stage and I was just like, oh. And someone else like another comic like generally saying to me like, that was good. It's like, huh?
I laughed inside.
It would have been good for you, but not for me.
But I think when I did love the audience feeling like shit when I did my stand-up, it was always you found one person laughed the most, and it wasn't much, but you found the one that thought it was really funny but didn't want to laugh because the people around him or her thought that this was the most disgusting thing they ever heard.
Yeah.
So you're someone that actually like my jokes and just tries to keep it in and not laugh.
All right, well, we'll wrap things up. Henrich, man, I haven't seen you in person since January of last year. And the last time I saw you was in a crowded bar when I couldn't hear a word coming out of your mouth. And I was sober because it was January. And I was like stressed as hell and kind of fled from the place. So
yeah,
it'll be nice to actually spend a little time with you.
Yeah, I have a lot of things on my plate right now. I have a lot of wiping asses from people with mental disabilities and autism to do. So
which is your job, I hear.
Yeah, they have awful lot of diarrhea actually. If you wonder.
Sweet, I'll be there in a few years.
Yeah,
because I'm old. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be wiping your ass.
Well,
thanks
have a good summer, my friend. I'll see you in a few months.
Yeah, probably will. Are you vaccinated yet?
I've had COVID, and I got the first shot.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I get the next shot at the end of July.
I thought you were older.
Yeah, but it's Sweden, so.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you. See you later.
See ya.